I wake up gasping for air, my lungs burning as if they've forgotten how to breathe. The dream again, always the same. I'm floating outside the station, tethered by a single fraying cable. Earth looms beneath me, beautiful and unreachable, while behind me, something vast and dark eclipses the stars. The cable snaps, and as I drift away, a voice whispers, "No one escapes the void." My name is Miguel Reyes. 3 months ago, I accepted a position as a maintenance technician aboard what I was told was orbital research platform Alpha 7. The pay was astronomical, enough to clear my brother's medical debts and set my parents up for retirement in their small house outside of Houston. The catch? A full year in orbit with minimal contact with Earth. I signed the contract without reading the fine print. Classic mistake. It wasn't until our transport docked that I heard one of the guards, not crew members, guards, refer to it as ODF-7, Orbital Detention Facility 7. By then, it was too late. They confiscated our personal items upon arrival. The commanding officer, Administrator Novak, delivered our orientation in the sterile white room they call the processing chamber. His voice was flat, emotionless, as he explained our duties and, more importantly, the rules. "This facility houses individuals whose very existence is classified," he said. "You will never interact with them. You will never see them. You will maintain the station's external systems and nothing more." The other 3 techs and I exchanged nervous glances. This wasn't what any of us had signed up for. "The rules are simple," Novak continued, sliding a tablet toward each of us. "Follow them without exception and you'll complete your contract and return to Earth with full compensation. Break them." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. 10 rules appeared on my screen. They seemed straightforward at first. Maintenance protocols, restricted areas, communication guidelines. But as I read deeper, ice formed in my stomach. Rule 8 made no sense. If you hear your name called from inside air duct C-17, ignore it completely. Do not respond. Do not investigate. Rule 10 was worse. In the event of a Class 3 containment breach, proceed immediately to the nearest airlock. It wasn't until my 3rd week aboard ODF-7 that I realized the truth. This wasn't just a black site prison for terrorists or political dissidents. The thing they're keeping here isn't human. And I'm starting to think we aren't the staff, we're the wardens. This is my log. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. Or worse, I've become part of whatever experiment they're running up here, 400 kilometers above the Earth where no one can hear you scream. These are the rules for surviving Orbital Detention Facility 7. I've already broken 3 of them. The living quarters for maintenance techs are located in Sector E, the furthest point from the station's central hub. They told us it was to minimize our exposure to sensitive operations. What they meant was to keep us away from whatever the hell they're keeping in the core sectors. My room is barely larger than a prison cell, ironic, considering. A narrow bunk, a small desk with a bolted-down tablet, and a window. That window is my salvation and my torture. Earth rotates beneath us, achingly beautiful and impossibly distant. Enjoying the view? The voice startles me. It's Darren Lopez, one of the other maintenance techs. Unlike me, he's on his 3rd rotation. His dark eyes have the 1,000-yard stare of someone who's seen things they can't unsee. "Just wondering what my brother's doing right now," I say. Darren leans against my doorframe. Rule 5. Limit Earth observation to designated periods. "I'm still in my designated period," I counter, checking my watch. 15 more minutes before I have to lower the shutter. "Just looking out for you, man. Novak isn't someone you want on your bad side." I sigh and turn from the window. "You've been here before. What are they really doing here? What are we actually maintaining?" Darren's face closes off. Rule 1. Never discuss facility operations outside of assigned tasks. "Come on, man. We're alone." His eyes dart to the corner of my room where a small camera lens gleams. "Are we?" I lower my voice. "The rules don't make sense. Why can't we enter Sector A during Gamma Shift? Why are we required to wear those weird medallions during maintenance EVAs? And what the fuck is a resonance event? Keep your voice down, Darren hisses, and keep your head down. Ryan from the last rotation, he asked too many questions. Now he's working in Sector C. What's in Sector C? Nobody knows. That's the point. Once you're assigned there, you don't come back to the tech quarters. He runs a hand through his thinning hair. Look, I've got a family in San Diego. Just like you've got people in Houston, I do my job, follow the rules, and go home with my paycheck. The intercom crackles to life. All maintenance personnel report to Briefing Room 2 for shift assignment. Repeat, all maintenance personnel report to Briefing Room 2. Darren straightens. Let's go, and Miguel, a word of advice. Those rules on your tablet, memorize them. All of them, especially the ones that don't make sense. Briefing Room 2 is a stark white chamber with a large display screen on one wall. Administrator Novak stands at the front, his gaunt frame wrapped in a grey uniform bearing insignia I don't recognize. Not NASA, not SpaceX, not any commercial or governmental space agency I'm familiar with. Maintenance Team Epsilon, today's priority is external repair on the southern radiator array, Novak announces without preamble. His accent is vaguely Eastern European, though I can never quite place it. Lopez and Reyes, you'll handle the EVA. Kingston and Patel will monitor from control. Thomas Kingston, a former Navy engineer with arms like tree trunks, nods silently. Amar Patel, the youngest of our team, and supposedly a prodigy from MIT, stares at his feet, his fingers nervously tapping against his leg. Standard protocols apply, Novak continues. EVA duration, 90 minutes maximum. No deviation from the assigned sector. No communication except through approved channels. He looks directly at me. And no unauthorized observations. My face burns. He knows I've been asking questions. One additional note, Novak adds. There's a scheduled transport arrival at 1800 hours. All maintenance personnel are restricted to quarters during docking procedures. New prisoners? The words escape my mouth before I can stop them. The room goes silent. Novak's cold eyes lock onto mine, his face utterly expressionless. New personnel, he corrects smoothly. And Mr. Reyes, consider this your first formal warning for violation of Rule 1. 3 warnings and you're reassigned. Everyone knows that, though it's not written anywhere. Understood, sir, I mutter. Dismissed. EVA team, suit up immediately. You're going to get yourself killed, Darren whispers as we check each other's suits in the airlock prep room. The bulky EVA suits make us look like overstuffed marshmallows, but they're our only protection against the vacuum waiting outside. I just asked a question. There are no just questions here. Darren attaches the strange medallion to my suit's chest plate, a disc of dull metal with etched symbols that don't look like any language I've ever seen. Remember Rule 7? I recite it mechanically. Always wear the issued talisman during external operations. Do not remove it under any circumstances. And Rule 8. If you hear your name called from inside air duct C17, ignore it completely. And 9. This one makes me pause. In the event of a resonance event, place both hands on the nearest solid surface and recite the provided counter-frequency phrase until the event concludes. That counter-frequency phrase saved my life last rotation. Darren's eyes are dead serious. Whatever you think this place is, whatever you think you know, you don't. Just follow the damn rules. The airlock indicator turns green. It's time to step outside, into the void where my nightmares live. As the air evacuates from the chamber, I realize something that turns my blood to ice. The medallion on my chest. It's vibrating, not from the depressurization, from something else, something that feels almost like anticipation. Space is silent. That's what they teach you in training. But it's not entirely true. In your suit you hear things, the hiss of oxygen, the whir of circulation fans, the crackle of comms, your own heartbeat thundering in your ears. And sometimes you hear things that shouldn't be there at all. Approaching southern radiator array, Darren reports as we maneuver with our thruster packs. The massive thermal radiators extend from the station like giant metal wings, dissipating the heat generated by ODF-7's operations, whatever those operations might be. "Copy that, Lopez." Kingston's voice crackles through our helmets. "Telemetry shows a malfunction in panels 7 through 12, likely micrometeorite impact. The station looms above us, or below us, or beside us. In space, orientation is a luxury. From the outside, ODF-7 looks like any other large orbital platform, a central hub with extending modules, solar arrays, and radiator panels. But there are oddities. Certain sections have no external windows. Some modules are surrounded by what appear to be additional shielding layers. And at the very center, a dome-like structure that doesn't match any standard space station design I've ever studied. Keep focused, Reyes, Darren warns. Remember Rule 3. Rule 3. During EVA operations, maintain visual focus on assigned task areas only. Copy that, I respond, turning my attention to the damaged radiator panels. The damage is obvious, a cluster of small punctures surrounded by a spider web of cracks in the thin metal. Standard repair procedure: apply a thermal patch, then reinforce with pressure sealant. We work in silence for 20 minutes, the earth spinning beneath us in all its blue-green glory. Just as I'm applying the final layer of sealant, I feel it, a vibration running through my gloves. "Lopez," I say cautiously, "are you feeling that?" Darren freezes. "Feeling what?" "The vibration, through the hull." "Shit," he mutters. "Kingston, are we having a resonance event?" Static answers him. "Kingston? Patel? Do you copy?" Nothing but crackling. The vibration intensifies, and now I can feel it through my whole suit. The medallion on my chest begins to hum, the strange symbols seeming to shift and crawl across its surface. "Resonance event," Darren says urgently. "Rule 9, now!" I place both gloved hands flat against the station's hull, feeling ridiculous even as fear claws at my throat. "What's the counter-frequency phrase again?" "Check your HUD!" I blink, activating the heads-up display in my helmet. The phrase appears in glowing red letters. "Void sees, void holds, void keeps." "Void sees, void holds, void keeps," I begin chanting, feeling absolutely idiotic. Darren joins me, his voice tight with tension. "Void sees, void holds, void keeps." The vibration peaks, and for a moment I swear I can hear something else beneath our chanting, a low, mournful tone that sounds almost like singing. The radiator panel beneath my hands seems to ripple, as though becoming temporarily liquid. "Void sees, void holds, void keeps," we continue, and gradually the vibration subsides. The medallion stops humming, the comms crackle back to life. "OP? EVA team, do you copy?" Kingston's voice sounds panicked. "We copy," Darren responds. "Resonance event, followed Protocol 9. A new voice cuts in. "Administrator Novak. Return to the airlock immediately. EVA terminated." "But we haven't finished the repairs," I begin. "Immediately, Mr. Reyes." As we fire our thrusters to return to the airlock, I risk breaking Rule 3. I look back at the center of the station, at that strange dome. For just a moment, I swear I can see something moving beneath its surface, something that doesn't reflect light the way solid matter should. "What the hell was that?" I demand once we're back inside the station, helmets off, but still in our EVA suits. My hands are shaking. Kingston and Patel won't meet my eyes. Darren just shakes his head slightly, a warning. Administrator Novak enters the prep room, accompanied by 2 security officers I've never seen before. Their uniforms are different, darker, with red stripes at the collar, and they carry what look like weapons at their hips. "Mr. Lopez, you may return to quarters. Mr. Reyes will join you shortly." Novak's tone leaves no room for argument. After Darren leaves, Novak dismisses Kingston and Patel as well. Soon, it's just me, Novak, and the 2 security officers. "Mr. Reyes," Novak begins, his voice unnervingly calm. "Are you familiar with the concept of need to know?" "Yes, sir." "Then understand this. What you experienced was a standard oscillation in the station's electromagnetic field. Nothing more. I can't help myself. That wasn't electromagnetic. The hull was changing. Novak's expression doesn't shift. Your perception was affected by the EM field. This is well documented. And the medallions, the counter-frequency phrase, that's for an EM field. One of the security officers shifts slightly, his hand moving closer to his weapon. Mr. Reyes, Novak says, so quietly I have to strain to hear him. There are 26 maintenance technicians currently assigned to ODF-7. You are replaceable. The work we do here is not. I strongly suggest you focus on your assigned duties and forget what you think you saw. He takes a tablet from his pocket and shows me a video. My family's small house outside Houston. The footage is recent. I can see the new fence my dad installed last summer. Your family receives substantial benefits from your service here. It would be unfortunate if those benefits were to cease. Ice forms in my stomach. Are you threatening my family? I'm reminding you of what's at stake. Your brother's medical treatments alone cost more than most people earn in a decade. He tucks the tablet away. Tomorrow, you'll be assigned to routine maintenance in Sector D. I trust there will be no further incidents. As he turns to leave, a strange alarm sounds. 3 long tones followed by 2 short ones. The security officers tense immediately. Sir, one of them says urgently, Prisoner 34 is showing signs of activity. Novak's impassive mask slips for just a fraction of a second, revealing something I never expected to see on his face. Fear. Initiate Protocol Sabre, he orders. Full containment team to Sector A. They hurry out, leaving me alone in the prep room, still half in my EVA suit. Prisoner 34, not personnel, not research subject. Prisoner. I finish changing and head back to my quarters, my mind racing. As I pass through Corridor E7, a maintenance shaft that connects our living area to the central parts of the station, I hear a soft metallic tapping from inside one of the air ducts. It sounds almost like Morse code, but not quite. Then unmistakably, I hear my name. Miguel, the voice whispers from inside air duct C17. It sounds human, but with an odd echo, as if speaking through water. Miguel Reyes, I know you can hear me. Rule 8. If you hear your name called from inside air duct C17, ignore it completely. Do not respond. Do not investigate. I walk faster, my heart pounding. The voice follows me. They're lying to you, Miguel. This isn't a prison, it's a feeding ground. I break into a run, not stopping until I reach my quarters and lock the door behind me. Only then do I realize I'm holding something, the medallion from my EVA suit. I don't remember removing it or bringing it with me, but here it is. Warm in my palm, the strange symbols seeming to shift when I'm not looking directly at them. That night, the nightmares are worse. I'm floating outside the station again. But this time, when I look back at what eclipses the stars, I can see it clearly. A vast darkness with edges that move like liquid, and within it, countless eyes that have no right to exist in our reality. In the dream, the thing speaks, its voice reverberating through the vacuum of space, impossible but undeniable. I hunger, it says, and you are also very, very small. Morning comes, or what passes for morning on a space station. The lights in the tech quarters gradually brighten over 30 minutes, simulating dawn. I haven't slept more than an hour, the voice from the air duct and the nightmare still echoing in my mind. The medallion sits on my small desk, inert now. I should return it to the EVA prep room. Taking equipment from there violates Rule 4. But something stops me. Instead, I hide it beneath my mattress before heading to the mess hall. Darren is already there, dark circles under his eyes matching my own. He pushes a tray of food toward me as I sit. Synthetic eggs, a protein bar, and what the menu optimistically calls orange juice. You look like shit, he says quietly. Didn't sleep. He leans closer. After yesterday's event, that's normal. It'll fade. I stare at my food, appetite non-existent. What exactly happened out there, Darren? And don't give me the electromagnetic field bullshit. He glances around, though we're alone in the mess hall. Listen carefully. I won't repeat this. These events happen every 18 days, give or take. The whole station experiences them, but they're strongest near the outer hull. What causes them? Darren takes a bite of his eggs, chewing thoroughly before answering. My last rotation, we had a tech named Jason Walsh. Smart guy, former physicist. He had a theory that the station sits at the intersection of something. A membrane between spaces, he called it. Like what? Parallel dimensions? Darren's expression hardens. Walsh was reassigned to Sector C after sharing his theories. That's all I know. He pushes back from the table. Today you're in Sector D, right? Stay focused, follow protocols. And Miguel, he hesitates. Whatever you heard yesterday after the event, forget it. Those voices, they lie. Before I can respond, the mess hall door slides open. Administrator Novak enters, flanked by a man I've never seen before. The stranger is tall and broad-shouldered, with a closely trimmed silver beard and hard eyes. Unlike Novak's pristine uniform, this man wears what looks almost like combat gear, black and functional, with no insignia. Tech Reyes, Novak calls. A moment of your time. I approach them, trying to mask my nervousness. This is Director Volkov, Novak says. He oversees all ODF operations in this orbital sector. Volkov studies me with eyes so pale they're almost colorless. Mr. Reyes, I understand you experienced your first resonance event yesterday. Yes, sir. Any lingering effects? Headaches, auditory anomalies, visual disturbances. The voice from the air duct flashes through my mind. I lie. No, sir. Nothing like that. Volkov nods, but his expression suggests he doesn't believe me. Good. Today you're assigned to Sector D maintenance. Routine work. Stay within the designated areas, and remember, Rule 6, I finish automatically. No unauthorized documentation of internal station components. A smile flickers across Volkov's face, cold and brief as winter sunlight. Precisely. Carry on, Mr. Reyes. Sector D houses most of the station's life support systems, water recycling, air filtration, and temperature regulation. Unlike the restricted areas, it's brightly lit and clearly labelled. Almost normal. Almost. As I work on replacing filters in the primary air distribution system, I notice peculiarities. The air ducts are larger than necessary for a station this size. Some of the routing makes no logical sense, with ducts doubling back or leading to sealed sections. And most puzzling are the strange crystalline sensors embedded at irregular intervals. Technology I've never seen in standard life support systems. Hey! A voice calls, startling me so badly I hit my head on an overhead pipe. Amar Patel stands in the doorway, tablet in hand. Unlike yesterday, he seems almost energetic, his eyes bright and focused. Didn't mean to scare you, he says, entering the maintenance bay. Novak sent me to check your progress. Almost done, I say, rubbing my head. Just need to calibrate the new filters. Amar nods, then glances over his shoulder before lowering his voice. I need to show you something. After your shift, meet me in Storage Bay E12. It's unused this rotation. Why? Because if what happened yesterday happens again, we're all fucked. And I think you're the only one asking the right questions. He steps back, voice returning to normal volume. Calibration looks good. Carry on. Before I can press him further, he's gone, the door sliding shut behind him. I finish my work mechanically, mind racing. What could Patel possibly know? And can I trust him? For all I know, this could be a test. Novak using him to see if I'll break more rules. As I'm packing up my tools, the lights flicker, once, twice, then steady. A moment later, the intercom activates. All personnel, stand by for gravity adjustment, preparing for transport docking sequence. The artificial gravity reduces by about 20%. A standard procedure when ships dock, reducing the station's rotational speed to make the connection easier. I feel the familiar lightness in my limbs, the slight disorientation as my inner ear adjusts. Then something else happens. A low-frequency hum begins to permeate the station, barely perceptible, but setting my teeth on edge. The maintenance bay's temperature drops several degrees in seconds, my breath suddenly visible in the air. The intercoms crackle with static, then, all non-essential personnel return to quarters immediately. Repeat, all non-essential personnel return to quarters immediately. I've just stepped into the corridor when alarms begin to wail, a different pattern from yesterday. 5 short bursts repeating. Emergency lighting activates, bathing the hallway in pulsing red. Warning, containment breach in Sector A. All personnel initiate lockdown procedures. This is not a drill. Sector A, the central dome. The place no maintenance tech is allowed to enter. The sensible thing would be to follow orders and return to my quarters. Instead, I find myself moving toward the nearest observation port, a small window overlooking the main docking bay. What I see freezes the blood in my veins. The incoming transport isn't the sleek shuttle that brought me to ODF-7. It's massive, easily 3 times the size. Its hull a dull black that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. No markings, no windows, just smooth, uninterrupted darkness except for a loading bay that's now connecting to the station. 4 figures emerge from the transport. They wear what look like hazmat suits, but wrong somehow. The proportions off, the materials seeming to shift and move even when the wearers are still. Between them, they escort what I first take to be another suited figure, but quickly realize is something else entirely. The prisoner, for lack of a better word, stands at least 7 feet tall. Its body is encased in some kind of transparent containment unit, allowing me to see it clearly despite the distance. My mind struggles to process what I'm seeing. The creature has a vaguely humanoid shape, but seems to bend light around it, its edges blurring and shifting as if it's not fully present in our reality. Where a head should be, there's just a swirling mass of what looks like dark smoke, with occasional flashes of something more solid beneath, something with too many eyes. Jesus Christ, I whisper, unable to look away. The procession moves from the docking bay into the station proper. Just before they disappear from view, the creature suddenly turns, or what passes for turning with its impossible anatomy, and seems to look directly at me through the small observation port across 30 meters of empty space. In my mind, clear as day, I hear words. The veil thins, Miguel Reyes. Soon they won't need the talismans to hold us back. I stagger away from the window, my stomach heaving. The voice is the same one from my dreams, the same one that called my name from the air duct. Hey, what are you doing here? A security officer appears at the end of the corridor, hand hovering near his weapon. All techs should be in quarters during transport operations. Sorry, I manage. I got turned around when the alarm started. He eyes me suspiciously. Sector E is that way. Move quickly. I hurry past him, fighting the urge to run. As I round the corner, the lights flicker again, and for an instant I swear I see someone, or something, standing in the shadows at the far end of the hallway. A tall, thin silhouette with proportions that don't quite match any human I've ever seen. It raises what might be an arm in greeting, then vanishes as the lights stabilize. By the time I reach my quarters, I'm drenched in cold sweat. Darren is waiting outside my door, face ashen. "Where the hell have you been?" he demands. "Didn't you hear the lockdown order?" "I saw it," I tell him, my voice shaking. "The prisoner they were bringing in. Darren, it wasn't human. It wasn't anything from Earth." He grabs my arm, fingers digging in painfully, and drags me into my room. Once the door closes, he rounds on me. "Are you fucking insane?" he hisses. "You broke Rule 2, no observation of transport operations." "What are they keeping here?" I demand. "What the hell is this place really?" Darren runs both hands through his hair, his composure cracking. "You don't understand. None of us understood at first. ODF-7 isn't a black site for political prisoners or terrorists. It's a containment facility for entities that don't belong in our reality. Like what I just saw." "That's just a drone," Darren says, his voice barely above a whisper. "A servant. The real prisoners are much, much worse." The intercom in my room activates suddenly, making us both jump. "Tech Reyes, report to Administrator Novak's office immediately." Darren's face goes pale. "They know you saw it. Miguel, listen to me. Deny everything. Say you went straight to your quarters. It's your only chance." As I turn to leave, he grabs my arm again. And whatever happens, don't tell them about the voice in the air duct. They'll think you've been compromised." "What does that mean? Compromised how?" His eyes are wide with genuine fear. "The entities can influence people, get in their heads, make them do things." "Like what?" "The look he gives me will haunt me for the rest of my life. Like sabotaging the containment fields, like setting them free." Administrator Novak's office is located in Sector B, accessible only through a series of security checkpoints. Each one scans me thoroughly, retinal patterns, fingerprints, even a strange device that passes over my head and chest, emitting a soft purple glow. "Tachyon resonance scanner," the security officer explains when he notices my confusion. "Standard procedure after transport operations." I nod as if this makes perfect sense, as if tachyon resonance is something they taught us during orientation. It wasn't. The office itself is surprisingly austere. No personal items, no photographs, not even the usual commendations or certificates you'd expect from someone in charge of a high-security facility. Just a metal desk, 3 chairs, and wall-mounted screens displaying station schematics and what appear to be containment metrics, rows of data and fluctuating graphs labeled with alphanumeric codes rather than names. Novak isn't alone. Director Volkov stands by the window, staring out at Earth below. A third man sits in the corner, wearing a white lab coat with a blue insignia I don't recognize. He's older, with thinning white hair and thick glasses, his fingers constantly tapping against a tablet in his lap. "Mr. Reyes," Novak gestures to the empty chair across from his desk. "Please, sit." I obey, feeling like a student called to the principal's office. The tension in the room is palpable. "This is Dr. Whitman," Novak indicates the older man. "He oversees our research division." Whitman barely glances up from his tablet, offering a distracted nod. "We have a situation, Mr. Reyes," Novak continues. "Our security systems indicate you were in Corridor B9 during transport operations, directly violating Rule 2. There's no point denying it." "Yes, sir, I got disoriented when the alarm sounded." "And you happened to find yourself at an observation port overlooking the docking bay?" Volkov turns from the window, his pale eyes boring into me. "I was trying to get my bearings." "Don't insult our intelligence," Volkov cuts me off. "You saw the arrival of prisoner 43. So that's what it was. Not 34, but 43. How many of these things do they have?" "Yes," I admit. "I saw it." Dr. Whitman finally looks up, suddenly interested. "And did it see you, Mr. Reyes?" The question catches me off guard. I don't know." "Did you experience any unusual sensations?" Whitman presses. "Headache, disorientation, auditory or visual hallucinations, intrusive thoughts?" The veil thins, Miguel Reyes. "No," I lie. "Nothing like that." Whitman and Novak exchange a glance. Volkov just keeps staring at me, unblinking. "We have a problem," Novak says finally. "Protocol dictates that any unauthorized personnel who observe a Class 4 entity must be evaluated for potential influence. This requires a 72-hour quarantine in medical." My heart sinks. 3 days in isolation, likely under constant observation. "However," he continues, "we're currently short-staffed in Sector D due to recent reassignments. Dr. Whitman believes the risk is minimal since your exposure was brief and through reinforced glass." Whitman nods. "The containment unit is specifically designed to minimize psionic leakage, and Mr. Reyes shows no obvious signs of influence. His scan was clean." "So, I can return to duty?" I ask, trying not to sound too hopeful. "With conditions," Volkov interjects. "You'll wear a monitoring device at all times. Any unusual behavior and you go straight to quarantine, and you'll be restricted from EVA operations until further notice." Relief washes over me, followed immediately by suspicion. Why are they being so lenient? From everything I've seen, this facility operates on rigid protocols. Novak slides a small device across the desk, a metallic bracelet with a blinking green light. "This will monitor your vital signs and brainwave patterns. Remove it for any reason, and you'll be immediately detained." I secure it around my wrist, noting how similar the metal feels to the EVA medallion hidden beneath my mattress. "You're dismissed, Mr. Reyes," Novak says. "Report for your next shift as scheduled." I stand to leave, but Volkov's voice stops me at the door. "One last thing. We've reassigned Tech Lopez to Sector C for the remainder of this rotation. You'll be working with Kingston from now on." The message is clear. Darren is being punished because I broke the rules. He's been sent to the sector no one returns from. "I understand, sir." "I hope you do," Volkov replies coldly. "For everyone's sake." The corridor outside Novak's office is deserted except for a lone security officer who escorts me back to the tech quarters. Neither of us speaks during the journey. When we reach Sector E, he nods once and leaves me at the entrance. Instead of going to my room, I head straight for Storage Bay E12. Patel had asked to meet me there, and after everything that's happened, I need answers more than ever. The storage bay is dimly lit and cluttered with crates of spare parts and maintenance equipment. No sign of Patel. I check my watch. I've been with Novak for over an hour. Maybe Patel gave up waiting. "Reyes!" A whispered voice comes from behind a stack of containment field generators. "Over here." I find Patel crouched behind the equipment, his tablet projecting a small field that seems to distort the air around us. "Localized signal dampener," he explains, noticing my confusion. "It'll mask our conversation from surveillance. Not for long, though. 15 minutes max before the system flags the dead zone." "What's going on, Patel?" "Why all the secrecy?" He eyes the bracelet on my wrist. "They tagged you already? Shit. That complicates things." "Darren's been reassigned to Sector C," I tell him, "because of me." Patel's expression darkens. "Lopez was helping me. Now we're running out of time." He taps his tablet, bringing up a schematic of the station. "Look at this." The diagram shows ODF7's layout, but with unusual overlays, energy patterns, power consumption metrics, and what appear to be radiation readings. I've been tracking power fluctuations since I arrived 3 months ago. At first, I thought it was just inefficient distribution, but then I noticed the pattern. He points to a sequence of spikes. Every 18 days, the central containment systems draw massive power coinciding with the resonance events. Darren mentioned those, said they happen on a schedule. "It's not a schedule," Patel says grimly. "It's a cycle. The entities they're holding here, they're getting stronger. Each cycle, the power needed to contain them increases." I stare at the data, a chill running through me. What happens when the power isn't enough? That's what I've been trying to figure out. But look at this. He swipes to a new screen showing a countdown timer, 13:04:22 and ticking down. Based on my calculations, the next resonance event will be in just over 13 hours, and it's going to be significantly stronger than the last one. How much stronger? Patel swallows hard. I think it might exceed containment parameters. The implications hit me like a physical blow. You're saying these things could break free? I'm saying the administration knows it's a possibility. Why do you think they brought in Prisoner 43 today? They're consolidating, bringing their most dangerous assets to one facility. But why? If there's a risk of containment failure? Because they're not just containing these entities, Miguel, they're using them. Patel's voice drops even lower. I accessed some restricted files. ODF7 isn't just a prison. It's a research facility. They're studying these things, trying to harness their abilities. What abilities? Patel hesitates, glancing at the door. Think about it. Entities that exist partially outside our reality. Beings that can influence minds, manipulate matter, maybe even alter the fundamental laws of physics in their vicinity. Imagine the applications: weapons, energy production, even space travel. That's insane, I protest. You've seen these things. They're not tools to be used. They're dangerous. Tell that to the military-industrial complex, Patel says bitterly. But here's where it gets worse. I think the research has advanced further than anyone expected. Director Volkov arrived 2 weeks ago with a team of specialists. Since then, they've been conducting what they call integration experiments in Sector C. A cold weight settles in my stomach. What kind of experiments? Patel looks me directly in the eyes. They're exposing human subjects to controlled doses of entity influence, testing the limits of human-entity symbiosis. Human subjects? You mean maintenance techs who ask too many questions, security personnel who've seen too much, anyone they can afford to lose if the experiments go wrong. The dampening field around us flickers. We're almost out of time, Patel says urgently. Meet me tomorrow at 0400 hours in maintenance shaft D22. It's the only route to Sector C that isn't constantly monitored. I'm going to show you what they're really doing here. Why are you telling me all this? Why risk it? Patel's eyes flick to my monitoring bracelet. Because you've been marked. Soon they'll come for you too. And because... He hesitates. I think I found a way to stop them, but I need help. The dampening field collapses. Patel quickly shuts down his tablet and stands. Tomorrow, 0400. Don't be late. He moves toward the door, then pauses. And Miguel? Don't sleep if you can help it. That's when they're strongest. That's when they can get inside your head. After he leaves, I remain hidden among the storage crates, trying to process everything. The medallion beneath my mattress, the voices in the air ducts, the massive entity arriving in its containment field, the experiments in Sector C where Darren has been sent. None of this was in the contract I signed. As I finally head back to my quarters, the bracelet on my wrist seems to tighten, the green light blinking in rhythm with my pulse. Like it's not just monitoring my vitals, like it's counting down to something. Sleep is impossible after Patel's warning, but that doesn't stop exhaustion from settling into my bones. I've been awake for nearly 24 hours now, running on adrenaline and fear. My quarters feel smaller than ever, the walls pressing in. The monitoring bracelet pulses steadily on my wrist, its green light casting eerie shadows as I pace. To stay awake, I review everything I know about ODF-7, trying to separate fact from speculation. Hard facts. The station houses non-human entities referred to as prisoners. These entities can influence human minds somehow. The staff uses strange technology, the medallions, the counter-frequency phrases, to protect themselves. And something called a resonance event happens every 18 days, growing stronger each time. But why are they keeping these things? What is the purpose of ODF-7 really? I pull out my tablet, scrolling through the station schematics available to maintenance personnel. Most of the central sectors are restricted, showing only basic outlines without details. Sector C, where Darren has been sent, appears as just a blank space labelled Authorized Personnel Only. On impulse, I try accessing information about the medallions we wear during EVAs. The search returns nothing but basic usage protocols. All personnel must wear issued talismans during external operations. Removal of talismans during EVA is strictly prohibited. Talismans, not medallions. The choice of words seems oddly archaic for a high-tech space facility. My eyes keep drifting to the corner of my room, where the medallion, the talisman, remains hidden beneath my mattress. I shouldn't have taken it. I should return it before someone notices it's missing. Instead, I retrieve it, turning the disc over in my hands. The strange symbols seem to shift when viewed from different angles, almost like holographic text but more organic, alive. The longer I stare at it, the more I feel something. A distant humming at the edge of perception, like the resonance event but subtler. Without thinking, I hold the talisman next to my monitoring bracelet. The bracelet's light flickers from green to red, then back to green. Interesting. I place the talisman on my desk and step back. Even at a distance, I swear I can feel it, a pressure against my consciousness, like standing too close to powerful speakers playing a frequency just below human hearing. To distract myself, I pull up the personnel files I have access to. Most contain only basic information: names, positions, rotation schedules. I search for Jason Walsh, the physicist Darren mentioned. His file is sparse. Assigned to ODF-7 14 months ago, previously employed by CERN, current status, reassigned, Sector C. No further details. I try Patel next. Amar Patel, 28, systems engineer specializing in power distribution systems. Previous employment, NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, nothing unusual there. Then Thomas Kingston. Former Navy, specialized in underwater construction before transitioning to space systems. Extensive EVA experience. Finally, Darren Lopez. Something catches my eye. This is his 4th rotation on ODF-7. Most techs do 1 or 2 at most. Why would anyone voluntarily return to this place? His file notes a dependent receiving medical care. Ongoing treatment approved per contract addendum 7C. His son, maybe. Darren never mentioned family beyond saying he had people in San Diego. The intercom crackles to life. All personnel, stand by for night cycle initiation. Lights will dim in 5 minutes. I glance at my watch. 2,300 hours. Still 5 hours until my meeting with Patel. 5 hours to stay awake despite the artificial night cycle designed to regulate our circadian rhythms. Movement in the air vent catches my eye. A shadow sliding past the grate. Too large to be normal circulation patterns. My heart rate spikes, the monitoring bracelet's light pulsing faster in response. "Hello, Miguel." The voice comes from the vent, the same one I heard before. "You're learning quickly." I back away, remembering Rule 8. If you hear your name called from inside air duct C-17, ignore it completely. "This isn't C-17, the voice says, as if reading my thoughts. "Rules don't apply here." "What are you?" I manage to ask, my mouth dry. The vent grate vibrates slightly. "A prisoner, like you, though my cage is different." "I'm not a prisoner. I'm a maintenance technician." A sound like distant laughter echoes through the duct. "Is that what they told you? Look at your wrist, Miguel. Look at your contract. You signed away more than your time." I glance down at the monitoring bracelet. "What do you mean?" "The resonance events are getting stronger because the barriers are weakening. Soon, very soon, the membranes between realities will become permeable. Those who wear the sigils of binding will be protected. The rest will be changed." Changed how? The shadow in the vent shifts closer. For a split second, I glimpse something pressed against the grate. Not a face exactly, but a collection of features that suggest one. Eyes that don't match. A mouth with too many corners. Some will die. Some will transcend. Some will become vessels. The thing's voice drops to a whisper. "They've been preparing for this, Miguel. The experiments in Sector C, practice runs. Controlled exposures to see which humans can survive integration." My blood runs cold. Integration with what? With us. With the void beyond your reality. The shadow pulls back slightly. "Your friend is down there now, the one they call Lopez. He's being prepared." "For what?" "To become a doorway." The lights in my quarters dim as night cycle begins. In the near darkness, the grate slowly, impossibly, begins to bend outward, metal twisting as if made of soft clay. "Would you like to see what's on the other side, Miguel Reyes? What's waiting beyond the thin membrane of your reality?" I stumble backward, grabbing the talisman from my desk instinctively. The moment my fingers close around it, the vent grate snaps back to its normal shape, the shadow vanishing with a sound like rushing wind. My heart pounds so hard I can feel it in my throat. The monitoring bracelet flashes red repeatedly, then returns to green. Did they detect that? Are they watching? I stare at the talisman in my hand, then at the vent. Somehow, this thing protects against whatever was trying to come through. But protection comes with a price, the same pulsing pressure against my mind, stronger now. The next few hours are agony. I force myself to stay awake, alternating between pacing and performing isometric exercises against the wall. Several times I catch movement at the edge of my vision, shapes sliding just out of sight when I turn my head. Twice the lights flicker, and each time the temperature drops noticeably. At 03:30, I prepare to meet Patel. I tuck the talisman into my pocket, not willing to leave it behind after what happened. The corridors of Sector E are deserted during night cycle, emergency lighting casting long shadows that seem to move independently of any objects. Maintenance shaft D22 is accessed through a service panel near the water recycling systems. I key in my tech access code and the panel slides open to reveal a narrow crawl space lit by dim blue lights. Patel is already there, his face ghostly in the blue glow. You made it. Good. We don't have much time. What's in Sector C, Patel? What are they doing to Darren? He looks surprised. How do you know about... Never mind. I'll show you. But first... He gestures to my wrist. That has to go. They'll know immediately if I remove it. Not with this. He holds up a small device. Signal replicator. It'll maintain your normal vital signs pattern. But we have to hurry. The next shift change is in 90 minutes, and we need to be back by then. I hesitate. Removing the bracelet is probably a major violation. Maybe even enough to get me reassigned to Sector C permanently. I can't guarantee what we'll find, Patel says quietly. But whatever it is, you deserve to know the truth. About this place. About what happens to people like Lopez. About what might happen to all of us when the next resonance event hits. Decision made, I extend my wrist. Patel attaches his device to the bracelet, waits for a light to turn blue, then carefully removes the monitoring band. The replicator continues to pulse with a simulated version of my vitals. This way, Patel leads me deeper into the maintenance shaft, which narrows until we're crawling on hands and knees through dusty conduits clearly not meant for regular access. How did you find this route? I ask. Kingston showed me. He's been here nearly 2 years, knows all the backways through the station. Patel pauses at a junction. He's the one who first noticed the pattern with the resonance events, started documenting the power fluctuations. Can we trust him? Patel's expression is grim in the dim light. Not anymore. 3 days ago, he was called to Novak's office, came back different, stopped talking about the fluctuations, destroyed his data, started following the rules obsessively, I think. He hesitates. I think they did something to him. We continue in silence after that, the only sounds are breathing and the occasional distant mechanical hum of the station's systems. Finally, we reach a heavy metal grate overlooking a large chamber. Sector C, Patel whispers. The integration lab. I peer through the grate and my world shifts permanently. The chamber below is vast, far larger than the station's schematics suggest. The center is dominated by what can only be described as a pit, a perfect circle perhaps 30 feet in diameter, descending into darkness. Around the pit's rim stand workstations filled with equipment I don't recognize, attended by personnel in the same dark uniforms with red collar stripes I saw during transport operations. But it's what's happening at the edge of the pit that freezes my blood. Darren is there, strapped to what looks like a modified medical gurney. His eyes are open but vacant, pupils dilated so widely that no iris is visible. Next to him stands Dr. Whitman, calmly making notes on a tablet while 2 assistants attach electrodes to Darren's head. Beyond them, partially obscured by equipment, is another gurney. The person strapped to it is barely recognizable as human anymore. Their skin has a strange, translucent quality, shot through with dark veins that pulse with an oily iridescence. Where their face should be is a churning mass of shadows, occasionally resolving into too many eyes, too many mouths, before dissolving again. That's Jason Walsh, Patel whispers. The physicist, or what's left of him. Dr. Whitman approaches the pit's edge and makes a gesture. A shimmering field I hadn't noticed deactivates, and something rises from the darkness below, tendrils of living shadow that coil and twist in impossible geometries. Integration Phase 3 beginning, Whitman announces, his voice echoing in the chamber. Subject Lopez demonstrates optimal neuroplasticity and minimal resistance. Commencing controlled exposure. The shadowy tendrils slither toward Darren, wrapping around his arms and legs before creeping up to his face. He doesn't struggle, doesn't even seem aware of what's happening. Psionic barriers holding at 62%, one of the assistants reports. Symbiotic meld initiating. The tendrils begin to sink into Darren's skin like smoke being absorbed into a sponge. His body arches, mouth opening in a silent scream. "What the fuck are they doing to him?" I whisper, horror and rage building in my chest. "Creating a hybrid," Patel says. "A human vessel that can channel these entities' abilities without succumbing completely to their influence. The perfect weapon, entity power with human control. We have to stop them. We have to help Darren." Patel grabs my arm. "We can't. Not now, not directly. But I've found something. A way to maybe shut down the whole operation." Below us, Darren's body convulses as more tendrils disappear beneath his skin. The monitoring equipment around him beeps frantically. "Psionic contamination at 43%, an assistant calls out. "Approaching safe threshold." "Continue," Whitman orders. "This subject has shown remarkable resilience." I can't watch anymore. "What have you found, Patel?" "What's your plan?" He pulls me away from the grate, back into the maintenance shaft. "The station's containment systems rely on a network of those talismans, the medallions we wear during EVAs. They're not just protective devices. They're nodes in a massive containment field. If enough of them were disrupted simultaneously, the prisoners would break free," I realize. "How is that a solution?" "You saw what they're doing to Darren. Imagine what these things would do if they weren't contained at all." "I'm not talking about releasing them," Patel says urgently. "I'm talking about overloading the system, feeding back the containment energy. It would create a cascading failure, not just in the fields, but in the membranes between realities that these things are pushing through. It might collapse the connection entirely, or it might blow a hole in reality and let them all through at once." Patel doesn't deny it. "It's a risk, but you've seen what's happening here. They're weaponizing these entities, creating human entity hybrids they can control. How long before they perfect the process? Before they have an army of Darrens?" My head spins with the implications. I remember the voice from the vent. "Some will die. Some will transcend. Some will become vessels." How would we even do this? The talismans are kept in the EVA prep room, under constant surveillance. Not all of them. Patel gives me a significant look. I feel the weight of the medallion in my pocket. "You knew I took one." "I suspected. Kingston mentioned you were present during a resonance event, that you'd handled a talisman directly. They have effects on people, create a kind of connection." "What kind of connection?" Patel hesitates. "The entities can't directly affect our reality without a vector, a connection point. The talismans are designed to block that connection, to create a barrier, but they're still a link, just a controlled one." "You're saying I'm connected to these things?" "I'm saying the talisman you took creates a potential bridge, one we might be able to use." Before I can respond, a distant alarm begins to sound. Patel checks his watch and curses. "That's the pre-shift alert. We need to get back now. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow." As we hurry back through the maintenance shafts, my mind reels with everything I've seen. Darren's body absorbing those shadowy tendrils. Walsh, or what remained of him, his face a churning mass of alien features. The pit in Sector C descending into darkness, and beneath it all, a question keeps pulsing in my mind, synchronized with the weight of the talisman in my pocket. Are we fighting to save humanity, or are we just pawns in a game between forces we can't possibly comprehend? Morning comes too quickly. I've managed perhaps 30 minutes of fitful sleep, jolting awake each time I start to drift deeper. The monitoring bracelet is back on my wrist, its green light innocent and steady, as if it hadn't been removed for our excursion to Sector C. My mind keeps replaying what we saw. Darren on that gurney, the shadowy tendrils disappearing into his skin, his silent scream. What kind of monsters would do something like that to another human being? The answer, of course, is the kind who believe the ends justify the means. The kind who see people like us, maintenance techs, security personnel, anyone expendable, as resources rather than human beings. I drag myself to the shower, letting the recycled water blast at maximum pressure. It helps clear my head slightly, but nothing can wash away the images burned into my brain. As I dress, I check my watch. 0700 hours. 8 hours until Patel's predicted resonance event. The mess hall is half full when I arrive. Kingston sits alone in the corner, methodically eating protein cubes while reviewing something on his tablet. He looks up as I approach, his eyes briefly meeting mine before sliding away. "Morning," I say, setting my tray down across from him. "Mind if I join you?" "Free station," he mutters, not looking up again. I study him while pretending to focus on my food. Patel said Kingston had changed after being called to Novak's office. Looking closely, I can see subtle differences from the man I met when I first arrived. His movements are stiffer, more precise. His eyes, when they occasionally flicker up, seem slightly unfocused, as if he's listening to something I can't hear. "Heavy workload today?" I ask casually. "Routine maintenance in Sector B. You're assigned to me for the shift." That's news to me. "What about Patel?" Kingston's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. "Reassigned." A cold weight settles in my stomach. "Reassigned where?" "That information is restricted." He finally looks up fully, and I catch a glimpse of something beneath the flat effect. Fear, maybe, or regret. "Listen carefully, Reyes. Do your work. Follow the rules. Don't ask questions about things that don't concern you." Before I can respond, Administrator Novak's voice comes over the intercom. "All personnel, be advised, due to scheduled system maintenance, power fluctuations may occur throughout the day. Continue operations as normal." Kingston's eyes narrow slightly. "They never announce the resonance events," he whispers, so quietly I almost miss it. Then, louder. "Finish up. We start in 15 minutes. Sector B houses most of the station's communications and data processing systems. Unlike the restricted areas, it's well lit and almost normal looking, with standard computer terminals and familiar equipment. Our task for the day is mundane, replacing cooling components in the server arrays, checking cable integrity, routine diagnostics. We work silently for the first hour, Kingston methodically moving through the checklist while I assist. Finally, when we're deep in the server room with no obvious surveillance, I risk a question. "What happened to Patel?" Kingston freezes momentarily, then continues replacing a cooling fan. "He accessed restricted files. Security picked him up at 0500 hours. Right after our excursion to Sector C, did they discover our absence? Or was it something else? Where did they take him?" Kingston's hands shake slightly. "Where do you think?" "Sector C, the pit, the integration lab. We have to help him," I say quietly. Kingston turns to me, his expression a mix of anger and desperation. "We can't help anyone, understand? Not Patel, not Lopez, not even ourselves." He leans closer. "They're in my head, Reyes. Ever since Novak's office. I can hear them whispering all the time, telling me things, showing me things." "The entities?" I ask, though I already know the answer. He nods minutely. "They're not just prisoners. They're waiting for something. The next resonance event is different, bigger." His voice drops even lower. "It's a tipping point. Patel said the same thing. He had a plan." "His plan would have killed us all." Kingston's eyes dart to the corners of the room, checking for surveillance. "The talismans are the only things holding the membrane together. Disrupt them, and everything tears open. They all come through." I try to process this. "So what do we do?" Kingston looks at me with empty eyes. "We survive. If we can." A tremor runs through the station then, subtle but unmistakable. The lights flicker once, twice, then stabilize. Both our monitoring bracelets flash red momentarily. "It's starting early," Kingston whispers, fear evident in his voice. "They're getting stronger." "The resonance event." But Patel said it wasn't due for 8 more hours. "Patel's calculations were based on the previous pattern. Things are accelerating." Kingston checks his tablet, which displays a station-wide alert only visible to certain personnel. Containment field fluctuation. Alert level 2. What happens during a resonance event inside the station? I've only experienced one during EVA. Kingston puts down his tools and sits heavily on a storage container. Each event is stronger than the last. The first few rotations, they were barely noticeable, just electrical glitches, weird dreams. Now, he trails off, staring at nothing. Now they break through just a little. They can reach into our minds, especially if you're not protected. The talisman in my pocket seems to grow heavier. Protected how? The medallions help, so do the counter-frequency phrases. But mostly, it's about mental discipline, keeping your thoughts focused, not letting them find cracks in your consciousness. He looks at me with sudden intensity. Whatever you do, don't sleep during an event. That's when you're most vulnerable. That's when they can get in deep. Another tremor shakes the station, stronger this time. The lights dim for several seconds. "We should get back to work," Kingston says, standing abruptly. "Better to stay busy. Keep your mind occupied." We continue our maintenance tasks, but the atmosphere has changed. The air feels thicker somehow, charged with static electricity that raises the hair on my arms. Twice more tremors run through the station. Each time Kingston tenses, closing his eyes and muttering something under his breath that sounds suspiciously like the counter-frequency phrase from the EVA. After the fourth tremor, the intercom activates. "All non-essential personnel return to quarters immediately." Repeat, "All non-essential personnel return to quarters immediately." Kingston looks at me, his face pale. "That's it. Lockdown. We need to go." We pack our tools quickly and head for the exit. As we pass through the main corridor of Sector B, I notice the security personnel are wearing the strange medallions, the talismans on their uniforms. Their faces are tight with tension. Just as we reach the junction that would take us to Sector E and our quarters, Kingston grabs my arm. "Not that way," he hisses. "Look." At the far end of the corridor leading to Sector E, the air appears distorted, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Within the distortion, shapes move, not quite solid, not quite visible, but undeniably there. "What the hell is that?" I whisper. "Containment bleed," Kingston replies. "The fields are weakening." He pulls me in the opposite direction. "This way, there's a secure area in Sector B designed for these situations." We hurry through increasingly deserted corridors. The tremors come more frequently now, and with each one the lights dim further. The monitoring bracelet on my wrist pulses between green and red, as if the systems can't decide if I'm safe or in danger. Kingston leads me to a reinforced door marked Emergency Shelter B-3. He swipes his access card, but the panel flashes red. "Access denied. Level 4, authorization required." "Shit," he mutters. "They've upgraded the security protocols." Another tremor hits, the strongest yet. The corridor lights go out completely, replaced a moment later by the dull red glow of emergency lighting. In the crimson dimness, the walls themselves seem to breathe. "What now?" I ask, trying to keep the panic from my voice. Kingston's face is ghostly in the red light. "We need to get to Sector D. The environmental systems room has reinforced shielding because of the critical life support functions." As we turn to go, a figure appears at the end of the corridor, a security officer, his movements strangely fluid, almost boneless. "You," he calls, pointing at us. "Technicians, remain where you are." Kingston freezes. "Look at his eyes," he whispers. "He's compromised." The officer draws closer, and I see what Kingston means. The man's eyes are completely black, no whites visible at all. His mouth stretches in a smile that's just slightly too wide for his face. "The barriers are falling," the officer says, his voice overlaid with a strange harmonic, as if multiple people are speaking simultaneously. "The anchors are failing. All will be remade." Kingston pushes me backward. "Run," he says. "Don't look back." "What about you?" "I'm already gone," he says. Then, to my horror, his eyes begin to darken, pupils expanding to consume the iris. "They've been in my head for days, just waiting for the field to weaken enough." He smiles, the same too wide smile as the officer. "We've been waiting for you, Miguel Reyes." I bolt, sprinting down the corridor away from both of them. Behind me, I hear Kingston laugh, a sound no human throat should be able to produce. The next minutes blur together in a haze of panic. I race through unfamiliar sections of Sector B, no clear destination in mind except away. The station shudders continually now, the tremors almost constant. The red emergency lights flicker and dance, casting grotesque shadows that seem to move independently of any objects. In my pocket, the talisman burns hot against my thigh. I pull it out, half expecting it to be glowing, but it looks the same as always, except the symbols are definitely moving now, flowing across the surface like living calligraphy. Another violent shake throws me against the wall. The impact knocks the wind from my lungs and I slide to the floor, dazed. As my vision clears, I realize I'm not alone in the corridor. Dr. Whitman stands about 10 meters away, looking remarkably calm despite the chaos. Unlike Kingston and the security officer, his eyes are normal, his expression one of scientific curiosity. "Mr. Reyes," he says, as casually as if we'd met in the mess hall, "I was hoping to find you." "Stay back," I warn, scrambling to my feet. "There's no need for alarm. In fact, I'm here to help you." He gestures to the talisman in my hand. "You've been carrying that since your EVA, haven't you? Interesting. Most humans can't tolerate prolonged contact without proper preparation." Another tremor rocks the station. Whitman doesn't even sway, as if he's somehow anchored to the floor. "What's happening?" I demand. "What is this resonance event really?" "A convergence," Whitman replies. "A thinning of the membrane between realities, our reality and others." He takes a step closer. "The entities we contain here exist partially in our dimension and partially in others. During resonance events, the balance shifts." "And the experiments in Sector C? Turning people into hybrids?" Whitman smiles thinly. "Crude terminology, but essentially correct. The human mind can serve as a bridge between dimensions, with proper preparation. We've been developing the technique for years. You're turning people into what? Doorways?" "Anchors," he corrects. "Stable points of contact between realities. The natural membranes are failing, Mr. Reyes, have been for decades. These entities are merely the vanguard, the scouts. But more are coming. The only question is whether we control the incursion or they do." I hold up the talisman. "And these? What are they really?" "Focus points for the containment field. They channel energy from our reality to reinforce the membrane." His eyes narrow. "That particular one, however, has been altered. I can sense it from here. Your friend Patel was quite resourceful." My breath catches. "What did you do to him?" "We helped him achieve his potential, as we can help you." Whitman extends his hand. "The next phase has already begun, Mr. Reyes. The resonance event occurring now will not end like the others. The membrane is reaching critical failure. There are two choices: controlled integration or chaotic invasion." Behind Whitman, the air begins to ripple and distort. Within the distortion, impossible geometries form and dissolve. Angles that can't exist in three-dimensional space, curves that hurt the eyes to follow. "Last chance," Whitman says. "Give me the talisman. Join us willingly. It's much less painful that way." In response, I clutch the talisman tighter and run. Running through the station during a full resonance event is like sprinting through a nightmare. Reality itself seems fluid, unstable. Walls ripple when I'm not looking directly at them. Doorways lead to different places than they should. Gravity shifts subtly, making every step uncertain. The tremors have become a constant vibration now, the entire station humming like a tuning fork. The monitoring bracelet on my wrist flashes erratically, sometimes green, sometimes red, sometimes colors that shouldn't exist. I have no destination in mind beyond away from Whitman, but the station no longer makes sense. I recognize none of the corridors, though I've studied the schematics extensively. Sector markings on the walls shift and change as I pass them. B becomes C becomes A, then symbols I've never seen before. The talisman grows hotter in my hand, the symbols crawling faster across its surface. I should let it go. It's clearly reacting to the resonance event, but some instinct tells me it's the only protection I have. As I round a corner, I collide with someone coming the other way. We both stagger back, and I raise the talisman like a weapon before recognizing Patel. Miguel, he grabs my arm. Thank God. I've been looking everywhere for you. Something's wrong. Patel looks exactly as he did yesterday. No sign of the integration process Kingston spoke of. No visible effects from being reassigned. How did you escape Sector C? I demand, backing away. They took you at 0500 hours. What? No, they didn't. Patel looks confused. I've been hiding in the maintenance shaft since our trip to Sector C. When the resonance event started early, I came looking for you. I hold the talisman out toward him. Don't come closer. Patel's eyes fix on the medallion. You still have it. Good. We need it for the plan. What plan? You never explained how this would actually work. I will, but not here. He glances over his shoulder. They're coming. We need to move. Who's coming? The anchors, the integrated ones. They can sense us, especially you since you're holding the talisman. He points down a side corridor. This way, there's a secure area in Sector A where the fields are strongest. Sector A, the mysterious central dome I saw during EVA. I hesitate. Why would we go to the most restricted area during a containment breach? Patel's face hardens. Because that's where the control systems are, the heart of the containment field. If we're going to stop this, that's where we need to be. Another violent tremor rocks the station, throwing us both against the wall. The lights fail completely for several seconds. When they return, the corridor behind Patel is filled with writhing darkness, like living smoke. Too late, Patel mutters. Run! We sprint down the side corridor as the darkness surges after us, moving with impossible speed. The walls around us buckle and distort, surfaces becoming liquid-like before re-solidifying in different configurations. What the hell is happening to the station? I shout as we run. Reality cascade, Patel calls back. The membrane is rupturing in multiple places. The station exists in both dimensions now. We burst through a set of doors into what appears to be a lab of some kind. Equipment I don't recognize lines the walls. At the center stands a large cylindrical chamber filled with swirling blue energy. Patel slams the doors behind us and activates the emergency lockdown. Metal shields descend, sealing us in. That won't hold them for long, he says, rushing to a control panel. Give me the talisman, quickly. I hesitate, the medallion burning in my palm. First, tell me the truth. What did you do to this thing? Whitman said you altered it. Patel's fingers freeze over the controls. Whitman? You spoke to Whitman? Just before I found you, he said the resonance events are a thinning of the membrane between realities. That's partially true. Patel turns to face me fully. But what he didn't tell you is that they've been deliberately weakening the membrane for years. The prisoners aren't trying to break in, they're being pulled in, harvested. Harvested for what? Energy, technology, knowledge. These entities exist beyond our dimensional constraints. They can do things, know things, that should be impossible in our reality. He gestures to the equipment around us. All of this? Reverse engineered from what they've extracted. A massive impact shakes the sealed doors. Whatever's outside wants in. The talisman, Miguel, please, it's our only chance. I look down at the medallion, at the symbols crawling across its surface like living things. What did you do to it? I inverted the resonance frequency. Instead of reinforcing the membrane, it can disrupt it, but in a controlled way. A surgical strike rather than a catastrophic collapse. Another impact rocks the doors. It can create a vacuum effect, pulling the entities back through to their side and sealing the breach. And the people they've already integrated? Patel's expression darkens. They're lost, already more entity than human. Darren too? I'm sorry. Another tremendous impact, and this time the reinforced doors buckle inward. Through the warped metal, dark tendrils begin to seep through, the same shadowy substance I saw entering Darren's body in Sector C. Now or never, Miguel. I hand over the talisman. Patel takes it and immediately connects it to the control panel using cables that seem designed for exactly this purpose. The symbols on the medallion freeze, then begin spinning in the opposite direction. Initiating dimensional resonance inversion, Patel announces, typing commands into the system, targeting the primary breach point. The cylindrical chamber in the center of the room pulses brighter, the blue energy inside swirling faster. The talisman begins to vibrate, then levitate slightly above the console. "It's working!" Patel exclaims. "The field is reorienting!" The doors finally give way with a screech of tearing metal. Through the opening pours a mass of writhing darkness, not smoke, but something more substantial, more alive. Within it, faces form and dissolve, some human, some distinctly not. "Keep them back!" Patel shouts, still working the controls. "I need 30 more seconds. But how do I fight living shadow?" I look around desperately for a weapon, finding nothing but lab equipment. The mass surges forward, splitting into multiple tendrils that reach toward us. I grab a metal stool and swing it at the nearest tendril. It passes through harmlessly, the metal corroding instantly where it made contact. 15 seconds, Patel calls. The chamber's blue light intensifies, becoming almost blinding. The talisman spins faster, the symbols now a continuous blur. The darkness recoils slightly from the light, but continues its advance. Almost there. Patel's fingers fly over the controls. "Just need to..." He never finishes the sentence. A tendril of darkness shoots past me with impossible speed, impaling Patel through the chest. He gasps, eyes wide with shock and pain. "No!" I lunge toward him, but more tendrils block my path. "Finish it!" Patel chokes out, blood bubbling from his lips. His hand stretches toward a final control, a large red button marked Execute. I dive through the grasping darkness, feeling it burn against my skin like acid. My fingers find the button and slam down on it just as another tendril wraps around my ankle. The effect is instantaneous. The chamber erupts with blue-white light so intense it burns through my closed eyelids. The talisman shatters, fragments spinning in a perfect circle before blasting outward. The darkness shrieks, an impossible sound that exists more in my mind than my ears, and begins to retract. But something's wrong. Instead of being forced back through the door, the darkness is being pulled toward the cylindrical chamber, and I'm being pulled with it, the tendril around my ankle dragging me across the floor. "Patel!" I scream. "What's happening?" He's slumped over the console, life fading from his eyes. "Miscalculated," he whispers. "Not pushing them back, creating new breach, controlled collapse." The chamber's light shifts from blue to deep violet. The air around it seems to fold inward, reality itself bending toward a single point like water circling a drain. The darkness flows into it, along with loose equipment, papers, and anything not bolted down. I claw desperately at the floor as the tendril drags me closer to the swirling vortex. My fingers find a groove in the floor plating, and I hold on with all my strength. "Let go," a voice says, not Patel's. I look up to see Administrator Novak standing in the doorway, somehow untouched by the chaos, his feet planted firmly as if gravity means nothing to him. "It's too late, Mr. Reyes. The new passage is forming. Someone must go through." "What are you talking about?" I scream over the howling void. "A connecting point, a human anchor to stabilize the new membrane." Novak's face remains impassive. "Your friend Patel thought he was closing the breach. Instead, he's created a controlled one, more stable, more useful." The tendril pulls harder, my fingers slipping from their hold. "I don't want to go. Nobody does at first." For an instant, Novak's face seems to shift, becoming something inhuman before settling back to normal. "But you're already linked. The talisman saw to that. And now your dream will come true." "What dream?" "The one you've had since arrival, floating outside, tethered by a single cable." Novak almost smiles. "It wasn't a dream, Mr. Reyes. It was a premonition." My grip fails. The tendril yanks me toward the swirling vortex. As I'm pulled in, the last thing I see is Novak's face, watching with clinical detachment as I'm dragged into the void. And then, nothing. Absolute darkness. absolute cold, the feeling of falling forever, until the voice, the same voice from my dreams, from the air duct, speaks directly into my mind. "Welcome, Miguel Reyes. We've been waiting for you." I open my eyes, though I no longer have eyes in any conventional sense. Around me stretches an impossible landscape, a realm where physics and geometry have no meaning. Shapes that cannot exist in 3 dimensions unfold in every direction. Colours that have no names pulse and flow, and within it all, vast intelligences move and observe. They've been watching us for a long time, these entities. Not prisoners, as I had thought. Not invaders, as Whitman claimed. Something else entirely. Witnesses. Watchers. The original inhabitants of a realm humanity has been blindly pushing into for decades. And now, through me, through the bridge Patel unwittingly created, they can finally push back. "We have shown you truth," the voice says, emanating from everywhere and nowhere. "Now you will show us your world." I feel myself changing, my consciousness expanding beyond human limitations, while simultaneously being compressed into a single point of blazing awareness. No longer Miguel Reyes, maintenance technician. No longer entirely human. I am becoming the anchor, the doorway, the bridge between worlds, and somewhere 400 kilometers above Earth, Orbital Detention Facility 7 trembles on the edge of a new reality. NASA Internal Communication, classified. Date, March 15th, 2026. Subject, status report, ODF-7 incident. To Director, Special Projects Division. From Dr. Elijah Whitman, Chief Science Officer. It has been 6 months since the containment breach and subsequent stabilization event aboard Orbital Detention Facility 7. As requested, this report summarizes our current understanding of the situation and ongoing research initiatives. Following the actions of Technician Reyes and Engineer Patel, the station experienced what we now recognize as a controlled dimensional collapse rather than the catastrophic breach we initially feared. While 37% of the facility remains inaccessible due to persistent spatial anomalies, the central research sectors and containment areas have been successfully reclaimed and reinforced. Most significantly, the unstable membrane between our reality and the extra-dimensional space has been replaced by what we can only describe as a stable, regulated interface. This interface appears to be centered on, or perhaps embodied by, Technician Reyes himself. Since his transformation, Reyes has remained suspended within the dimensional boundary. His physical form has undergone extensive modification, which our instruments can only partially detect. What remains recognizably human serves as an anchor point for the interface, while the rest of his consciousness appears to extend into the other dimension. Remarkably, Reyes retains the ability to communicate, though not through conventional means. The attached transcripts detail our conversations through the specially designed resonance interpreters. His insights into the nature of the extra-dimensional entities, which he insists we should call observers rather than prisoners, have revolutionized our understanding. Perhaps most significant is his revelation that our universe has been intersecting with theirs for millennia, but the natural boundaries began deteriorating in the mid-20th century, coinciding with the first atomic detonations. The observers did not seek entry to our world. Rather, our technological advancement inadvertently tore holes in the fabric separating our realities. ODF-7 was merely our most successful attempt to manage these intersections. Previous facilities exist, though Reyes claims they have been absorbed or redistributed across the dimensional boundary. As for the failed integration subjects, including technicians Lopez and Walsh, we have successfully contained 23 of the 37 affected personnel. The remaining 14 are unaccounted for and presumed to have been drawn completely into the other dimension during the event. Regarding the future of the program, Reyes has negotiated what he describes as a treaty with the observers. They will cease attempting unregulated entry into our dimension, provided we maintain the stable interface he now embodies. Limited, controlled technological exchange will be permitted through Reyes. Already, the theoretical physics team has received information that promises to revolutionize our understanding of space-time and energy generation. No further integration experiments will be conducted. Reyes was quite emphatic about this point, demonstrating his ability to destabilize the entire station when we attempted to continue the program with Subject 41. It is my professional recommendation that we comply with these terms. Reyes has made it clear that while he remains partly human and retains emotional connections to Earth, his perspective has been irrevocably altered. He now perceives both realities simultaneously and serves as the sole arbiter between them. Whether this represents humanity's greatest achievement or most terrifying mistake remains to be seen. Personal log, audio recording. Date, March 17th, 2026. I still dream of Houston sometimes, of my family in their small house with the new fence my dad installed, of my brother, whose medical bills I signed away my humanity to pay. Do they know what happened to me? Has anyone told them anything close to the truth? I doubt it. Easier to say I died in an accident. Brave astronaut, tragic failure of equipment. My name on a memorial somewhere, my family given a folded flag. Time works differently now. I perceive days, months, years simultaneously, stretched across both realities like threads in a vast tapestry. I can follow each one, see how they intersect, how they might have unfolded differently. In one thread, I never took the job. My brother died without the treatments. My parents aged alone in their house, eventually selling it to cover debts. In another, Patel's plan worked as he intended. The breach closed completely. The entities, the observers, were pushed back to their reality. But the separation wouldn't have lasted. The membranes were too damaged by then. The next breach would have been catastrophic, uncontrolled. Whitman thinks I negotiated a treaty. The truth is I brokered a stalemate. The observers could overwhelm our reality if they chose to. They have the power. But they're curious, not conquering. They want to understand, not destroy. And I'm no longer entirely human, but not quite one of them either. Caught between worlds, the anchor that prevents both from colliding catastrophically. The station continues its orbit, a secret prison that's not a prison, staffed by researchers who believe they're in control of something far beyond their comprehension. New maintenance techs arrive, unaware of what really happens here. Some will inevitably ask too many questions, see things they shouldn't. Some will hear their names called from inside air duct C-17. Some will take the night shift in sectors where the rules of reality don't quite hold. Some will dream, as I once did, of floating outside the station, tethered by a single fraying cable while something vast and dark eclipses the stars. To those who come after, follow the rules. Not because they'll protect you, they won't, not really, but because breaking them hastens the inevitable. The universe has rules far more fundamental than those written on a tablet by Administrator Novak. I've seen them now, written in geometries that human minds were never meant to comprehend. The void sees, the void holds, the void keeps. And I am its eyes,